are going to go on our Uber series and start working on how we can display all the history for the driving requests and for the driver itself. So we'll display. We already did start working on the database, and now we'll learn how we can get the data from it and display it on the recycler view. Which, if you don't know what it is, I strongly advise you to go and take a look. And it basically just displays a series of cards, all nice and pretty, and we can scroll up and down in them. So it is exactly what we need. So I'm going to grab the database to show you what we need. And okay, so we did in the previous lesson this child. So in the end of the ride, in the case of the customers, a child history is created with a unique ID for each drive, and then we have in here all the information of the drive in the child history, which is a different one, and this ID is the same as the ones that the customer has gone to. And yeah, so the first thing that we need to do is to grab all the IDs that the customer, this particular customer, has done. So this is all the drives that this customer has finished in his lifetime and paid for. And then, now that we know the IDs, which are these ones, we can go inside this child and actually look for the ride and all this information. So the customer, the driver, and the rating, which will make bigger as the time goes. So yeah, let's go right into it. Let me just open the project. Here we go. And so the first thing that we need is a button to take us to the history. And in this lesson, we will only take care of the customer side of things, but the code is exactly the same for the driver. And I'll make sure that where it needs to be different, I'll generalize it in order for for that we don't need to create another activity, which would be wasteful in my opinion. So let's create a button here quickly. So linear, let me just close this to be okay. Match parent, and I'm just doing that so that all three buttons can stay up top with no problems. So let's grab that and put inside it. Let's give it an ID of buttons, and the card view will be the card view for the play speaker, the fragment autocomplete will be below buttons. And now we'll give a width of 0 and a weight of 1. This will make sure that all the buttons occupy exactly the same space. Can remove this. And now the final one, or better yet, the middle one will be history. Okay, so as you can see, all three buttons line up at the top, and now we can go on to the activity and actually write the code for the button. Let me just find out the buttons. Here we go. So, and history, okay. Let's grab that, do the find view by ID. And I'm going to go fast on this because we all know how to do this. It's just for you to remember to do it. Set on click listener, new on click listener, and we can grab another intent, and this will take us to the new activity. So actually, let me just remove customer so that we can remember to do that, and let's create a new activity, the history activity, empty activity, and let's just call it history activity. We don't need to go fancy on that, so yeah. Finish. Okay. And in the meantime, we can come in here and just specify the activity that we want to be taken to when the history button is clicked. History activity, and that should do it. Okay, it is loading, but we can go on coding. Yeah, the error should go away. So now that that's done, what we need to do is to start working on the XML and actually write the recycler view because it is an object. So first thing first, we are going to change this to linear layout as always, or not. No, I'm actually going to leave it. There's no need to be always changing that. It's just me not liking it, but that's fine. So yeah, we're going to do feed system windows set to true, and now we are going to do the linear layout. Linear layout, it is going to be match parent and match parent. Orientation will be vertical, even though it isn't really necessary, I believe, but it is always good to specify these things on the linear layout. Okay, so after that we are going to have a nested view, scroll view, and we are doing this because I've used the RecyclerView object a bunch of times, and more than one time I had problems due to stupid things, so I always put this, make sure that it scrolls evenly and nicely with no problem. So then we can move on to the recycler view in and of itself. Recycler view, and with match parent and hide wrap content. Okay, make sure you got all that right. Then we are going to set the ID to history recycler view, and I forgot the @+ ID slash I'm sorry, and we are going to set the scroll bars to vertical. And yeah, that's it for the layout. Now we can actually start coding some interesting stuff. And yeah, so the first thing that we'll need is to actually place the RecyclerView variables, and we are going to call it mHistory RecyclerView. Then we just import it. RecyclerView, find view by ID, r.id, history RecyclerView. Okay, now we are going to just set some things to the RecyclerView. We are going to say that the nested scrolling enable is set to true. This will ensure that the scroll is fluid, and it doesn't, because it may, if you don't place this alongside the nested scroll, let me just check the name that I forgot. Nested scroll view, exactly. It will scroll, but it will stop if you stop moving your finger. So imagine you flick the screen. It should, even though you're not touching the screen, it should continue scrolling. If you don't set these things, it will stop, so it won't look very natural. So yeah, it is important to do this. So then set has fixed size, and it is true because we are only going to change the size in the beginning, and then we won't mess around with it. So for the user to get the most updated status, he must close the activity and open it again. Okay, So now that all that is done, we can actually start working on the array adapter, the objects, the view holders, which is the interesting stuff. Yeah, so we can go right on with it and just open here the project, and we are going to create a package just to make things look nicer and easier to look at. So RecyclerView, and this is just a folder that you put everything that has to do with the RecyclerView inside it. So the first thing that we are going to create will be the history object, and this will contain all the information that comes alongside each card of the RecyclerView. So yeah, and for this lesson we'll keep it really simple. The only data that we'll push inside each card of the RecyclerView will be the ride ID. And the ride ID, as you can remember, is this ID here, which is unique to every ride. And then we set public history objects, and then in here we push the parameters that we are interested in. So ride ID, and that we'll just place that for now, and then we say this ride ID, which it will be this one, equals to ride ID. And now we'll create the functions that we'll use to get the ID from this object. So string get ride ID, and we'll just do the get. We won't do the set ride ID because I normally do it, but it isn't necessary. And the only thing that we must do is return the ride ID, and that way we can access it anytime that we want. Access any ride ID of any position of the array that we'll use. Okay, this is the part that it would be nice for you to understand something of the RecyclerView, because I'm not going to go into full detail on it, but yeah, you get the most general part of it, hopefully. So yeah, then we'll need the RecyclerView view holders, and the view holders are basically what stores the find view by IDs of the card. So let me just write view holders. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do after finishing up with this code and the array adapter is to actually do the layout for each single card. And this class, the only thing that it does is to get the text views and the images and everything that's also associated with that specific card. So yeah, you'll see it in a moment. We do a lot of find view by IDs, so you'll understand what it does, and it is really simple. So now we must do the syntax, which is RecyclerView dot view holder implements view dot on click listener, and just implement methods on click. Okay, there is no default constructor. Okay, and then just click Alt Enter again, and this will be created, and it is inside here that we do all the magic. This on click will be used for us to know exactly which card was clicked, and when it is clicked, then we'll do an intent to go inside another activity where we display with more detail each and every single ride. But for now, we'll leave it blank. So let me think. Actually, okay, I'll tell you what we are going to have in the card, and then we do it. It's easier to do everything with a connection of some sort. So we'll have on this lesson only one text view for each card. And in that text view, we only have the right ID. And so it will look bland, it won't tell us much, but we'll see it working, and it is a good base to work on for the next lesson. So we'll need obviously the text view, right ID, item, and then we must do item view dot set on click listener this, and after that this is the syntax, and then we can just do the right ID equals to text view item view dot find view by ID r dot ID dot right ID. Okay, and it's asking for an import, just give it. And as you can see, this appears red because we still haven't created it. So let's actually go ahead and create it now. And let me just close this because we don't need it. And so we must create on layout a layout resource file. And we'll give it a name of item history, something that stands out. Yes. And inside item history, it will be really simple. And let me just, yeah. It will only have a text view. And can be wrap content, it doesn't really matter. Then the ID will be the right ID. Then we set the text size to 12 dp, and let me check inside here. Yeah, let's give it a padding of 20 just so the things don't look crowded inside it. So yeah, that looks nicer. Let's give it a text so that we can see what it looks like. Right ID. Okay, so let me, I don't know if you can see this because it is really small, but this is the card, and the card ends basically right here, and we'll have a bunch of them stacked on top of each other because that's what the RecyclerView does. It recycles views. So when you scroll, the views that that are up top aren't saved. It basically destroys them and creates more down. But if you scroll down, up actually, then views that were destroyed previously are created again, and those that were showing are destroyed because they are no longer in view. That's the magic of the RecyclerView. So now we can go on and go inside the view holders, and as you can see, the error is no longer an error, which is good. And yeah, now all that's left is to create the history adapter, which is the class that takes care of all that I've just told you. So history adapter, yes, and history adapter extends RecyclerView dot adapter history view holders, recycler, not recycled. Okay, and import everything that it wants, then do alt enter implement methods and implement everything that this extent needs for it to work. And yeah, so now we can just start writing some code and see what we come up with. So the first thing that we'll need is the list that contains the history object, that contains all the information. So create a variable of the type list and history object inside here, and then just give it the name of item list. And then we won't need these now, but we'll probably do in the future. So let's create the context, which will be passed at the moment of the creation of the recycler view. So yeah, then we need on create recycler view. So we need the function that will be public and that will call in order to populate or to create this adapter. So public, and I'm kind of surprised that the import didn't already do this, but we can do it ourselves. It isn't a major problem. So we'll pass the list that we want to show to the user, history object, item list, and we'll pass the context as well. Okay, so then we give this item list we populated with this item list that we got from the history activity. So item list equals to item list, and obviously sorry, and context is the same, equals to context. Okay, so now we must in the view holders in here we must pass the layouts that will be inflated and that will receive all the information. So yeah, and to do that we simply say view and make sure you import that layout view, layout inflator from parent.get context, and make sure you save this code because for recycler views it is always the same. Inflate our dot layout, because we'll get this item history that we just created, and it is stored under layout, and not that. Our dot layout dot item history, and it is actually asking for an import, so give it that import class. And now we must also set in here to null, comma, false, and that's done. So then we must change the layout params of this layout view just to make sure that they fit the whole screen. So yeah, this is another of those things that I've had problems in the past, and so I always do. Just make sure everything runs smoothly. Dot layout params. Oops, that's a capital L LP equals to new recycler view dot layout params view group dot layout params dot match parent, and this is just to force it to be match parent in its width and wrap content in its height, because it may not do that if you don't force it. And it is stupid, I know, but it is a problem that I've had, as I've told you. So it is always good to double check those things. And then we simply give these layout params to the layout view. So layout view dot set layout params LP, and then we create a new instance of the history view holders. So history view holders RCV equals to new history view holders layout view. and we return this variable inside here. Okay, so now all that's left is to actually populate each card with the value that we want. And as I told you, we're only going to be doing it for this text view, so it will be rather easy. And the function that takes care of populating it is this onBindViewHolder. And so all that we need to do is to call holder, which is this variable here, dot write ID, which is where it is, which is this variable here is the text view, dot set text, and now it works as a normal text view. So, and now we must get the write ID from this item list, which, as you can remember, is the list that we passed from this function. So in the history activity we are going to call it, and we are going to pass the list that we want to use in this recycler view, and it has positions. It works just as an array. So we get the position, and this position is a variable here, so we know it, dot get write ID, which is the function that we created inside here. Okay, so all that is done. Let me just close the object. The adapter is done, is completed. We don't need it anymore. The view holders are completed for this lesson, the item history as well. So all that's left is the history activity, and we must now do some code in order to actually go ahead and use everything that we've done so far. So, and that was a lot of talking, so let's get right on with it. And private recycler view, we must create a variable for the adapter. Private, okay, and history adapter. RecyclerView layout manager and history layout manager. Okay, so now we are going to write some code, and it is really important that you save this code, because again, it is always the same when you are trying to create a recycler view of any kind. So first of all, we must set a new linear layout manager. History activity dot this, and then we are going to attach the layout manager to the recycler view itself. So history recycler view dot set layout manager and history layout manager. Okay, so and history adapter equals to new history adapter. And now the things that we must pass inside here is the list and the context. As you can remember, I'm actually going to open it up, the adapter, and it is this function here. So we must pass a list with all the information that we want and the context for this activity. So for that we'll create a function. So get data set history, and we'll create it in a second. Let me just finish this, and history dot this history activity, because it is the context for this activity. And then we simply before going ahead and doing that, we simply call mHistory recycler view, and we apply this adapter to the recycler view. Set adapter and history adapter. And yeah, all that is done, and now we can go ahead and create this function create method. Okay, list history object, get data history, and all it does is return the results history, which will be the array list that, and in here it is array list. Okay, and this results history is the array list that contains all the information for each card, and that we got inside this activity, and then we moved it to the history adapter. So array list results history equals to new, and this is just initializing the array list. Array list history objects, semicolon. Oh, and yeah, that. So yeah, now that's all said and done with. Okay, I'm going to show you, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do in this lesson, and so everything is done. Now all that's left is to actually populate it. And I'm not going to fetch anything from the database yet. We are going to leave that to the next lesson because this is getting kind of long. And I'm just going to show you how to place data inside it and how to create a new card, basically. So to do that, it is really simply, I'm going to do it here, just for a matter of convenience, and we are going to create a new object. So it is basically creating, we are going to add this object into this array. So new history object, and in this object for now we only have the right ID, so I'm going to put, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and imagine this is the right ID. So it is created, and now all that we have to do is to add it inside this array list and notify the adapter, so this thing here, that something happened and that it must look at the list again and actually rewrite everything, or at least add something inside it. So we simply say results history dot add object, and history adapter dot notify dataset changed, and everything should be working just fine. And I'm actually going to add a bunch of them, so I'm going to do for int I equals to 0, I smaller than 100, let's say that, I plus plus, and so it should actually let's do something a bit more fun with it. Let's move the object inside here and do I here. So integer dot to string. Okay, so now what we expect this to do is to create 100 cards with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. Oh, and there's something wrong in here. So this set nested scrolling enabled must be set false. It is because of that whole smooth scrolling thing, and that's set false. So yeah, now we can run the app and see where we got. So the app has finished loading. Let's go into history. And as you can see, all these cards are created, and if you scroll up, more will show until 100. Or better yet, 99, because it starts at 0 and is smaller than 100. So yeah, as you can see, the scrolling is smooth. So everything is working out as it should be. So in the next lesson, we are going to actually populate it with relevant things to us. So I'm going only to do the ID, I believe, but we can do rating and much more. So yeah, this is only the beginning. I hope to see you again tomorrow. Please do subscribe, don't forget that, and ciao. California